Her father sat there denying everything, calling this blind-eye woman a liar, until his own 8-year-old daughter slowly raised her hand in court. "My lord, I have something to say. What happened next will shock you to your core." The courtroom was dead silent. Hearts were breaking. Everyone came to see one thing. How could a husband destroy his wife's eye? On one side sat Nancy. Her left eye was gone forever. A bloody scarf covered the empty socket. Tears poured from her good eye like a river of pain. Her whole body shook. She could barely breathe. Next to her sat her 8-year-old baby girl. The child wrapped her tiny arms around Mama and cried, "Mummy, please stop crying. Please don't hurt anymore." Then there was the monster. Jeff sat there smiling. Perfect suit, shiny shoes, acting like nothing happened. No tears, no sorry. He looked at his broken wife and felt nothing. He whispered jokes to his lawyer. He even laughed. The man who took away his wife's sight was having fun in court. How can a human be this cruel? Every woman in that room saw Nancy's pain and remembered their own bruises. Every man wanted to cry for her. This innocent woman lost her eye forever. Her child saw it all, and this monster sat there like a king. This broke everyone's heart. The atmosphere was tense. Outside the courtroom that morning, the air had been thick with whispers. "Is this not Jeff?" some said. "The same man who donated cement for the town hall." Others remembered how he gave money in church, how the pastor once called him a pillar of the community. He had dressed in fine clothes, driven big cars, and people bowed when he passed. Nobody imagined this same man could sit in the accused's chair today. Some people shook their heads in disbelief. "How can it be him? Or is it a lie?" they murmured. But inside, everyone waited for the truth. The clerk's voice rang out, "All rise for his lordship." Everyone rose to their feet. The judge, a stern elderly man with sharp eyes and white hair, entered and took his seat. "Be seated," he said firmly, and the case began. Without wasting time, Jeff's lawyer jumped to his feet. He was a tall, energetic man who loved drama. His voice boomed across the courtroom. "My lord, we are here because my client, a man of dignity and respect, has been dragged here unjustly. He is accused of blinding his wife, his own wife, a woman he cared for and provided for. My lord, this is nothing but lies, wicked lies designed to destroy a good man's name." The courtroom buzzed. Some people murmured, others hissed. A woman from the gallery shouted, "God will judge," and quickly covered her mouth. Nancy's lawyer sprang up immediately. "Monsieur," his voice sharp with anger. "My lord, that is an insult to this woman's pain. She sits here half-blinded, scarred for life, and her husband dares to deny responsibility? What kind of man points fingers at his own wife after breaking her down this way?" Jeff's lawyer slammed his palm on the table. "Objection, my lord. Counsel is appealing to emotions instead of facts. Where is the evidence? Where are the witnesses? Anybody can cry." But tears are not proof. The judge raised his hand. "Order. Both counsels will have their turn. Proceed carefully." Nancy trembled in her seat. She raised her head slightly to glance at Jeff, but his eyes met hers with a sharp, threatening look. She froze, her breath caught in her chest, and she quickly lowered her head again. Her hand moved instinctively to her left eye, pressing against the scarf as though it would relieve her pain. Life seemed cruel. Nancy used to be that woman that had laughed freely. People in her neighborhood used to say her laughter could brighten a dark day. She and Jeff once walked hand in hand through the town, smiling like new lovers. She would always wait eagerly for him to return home so they could share moments of love together. But those days had slipped away like water through fingers. What once was joy had turned to sorrow, and what once was a safe home had become a place of fear. Her lawyer touched her shoulder gently, then called the first witness. An elderly woman, Mama Nene, came forward. She lived next door to the couple. Her wrapper was tied tightly. She cleared her throat nervously as she spoke. "My lord, I have lived beside them for many years. Many nights I heard shouts. I heard Nancy crying. Sometimes I even saw her running out in the dark with bruises. One night I saw blood on her wrapper. She was holding her face." Murmurs filled the room again. People whispered, some turned their heads to one another. But before she could continue, Jeff's lawyer shot up. "Objection, my lord. What this woman is saying is nothing but gossip. Did she see my client raise a hand? Did she see him use any sharp object on the victim? No. She only heard cries. This is hearsay." The old woman stammered, I did not see with my own eyes, but—" "Then this is useless," the lawyer thundered. "Anybody can say anything if they only heard. We cannot build a case on stories." The judge nodded slowly. "Witness, you may step down." The old woman looked at Nancy with pity. Sorry, she whispered as she stepped away. Nancy tried to smile, but her lips quivered and she bent forward again in silent tears. Next, Nancy's lawyer called the nurse from the hospital. She walked forward holding a file. "My lord, this is the medical report from the night Nancy was rushed to the hospital. The report clearly states severe trauma to the left eye, deep cuts caused by a sharp object, and permanent loss of vision. My lord, this was not in any way an accident. This was deliberate violence." Gasps echoed through the room. People shifted in their seats, eyes wide. But Jeff's lawyer smiled and rose. "My lord, with due respect, a medical report can only say there was injury, but it cannot tell us who caused it. My client did not do this. Perhaps she could have fallen. She could have slipped. Who knows? Must we destroy a man's name because of assumptions?" Some people in the gallery hissed loudly. "Liar," one man muttered. Another shouted, "So she plucked out her own eye, The judge slammed his gavel. "Order! I will clear this courtroom if this noise continues." Nancy's sobs grew louder. She covered her face with her scarf, shaking violently. Her daughter rubbed her arm, whispering with a small voice like a broken soul that couldn't do anything to help. "Mummy, please don't cry." Her lawyer's voice rose again. "My lord, are we to sit here and let this man hide behind smooth words? Look at the woman. Look at her tears. Look at her eye. This is not acting. This is her life." Before the judge could reply, Jeff suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly. His voice filled the room. "My lord, enough of this nonsense. I have kept quiet long enough. Look at me. Do I look like a monster? I never touched this woman. I loved her. I gave her everything. And now she stands here to accuse me? My lord, this is betrayal. She knows the truth. She knows I did not do this." The gallery roared. Some shouted insults at him. Others argued among themselves. Nancy lifted her head. Tears steamed from her eyes. Tears of emotions and pain she could not control. Her lawyer guided her carefully to the witness stand. Her voice was faint, broken like a cracked bell. "My lord, I cannot fight anymore. I cannot argue. I know what happened to me. I live with it every day. But when I look at him, when I look at the man in this room, I see two faces. The man I married, and the man who hurt me." Her voice broke, and she wept openly. The judge sighed deeply, tapping his gavel once. "Control yourself, madam. This is still a court of law, but the battle of words was only beginning. Lawyers clashed, raising objections and counter-objections. Jeff folded his arms, smiling each time his lawyer silenced a witness. Nancy trembled each time his voice rose, shrinking into herself as if his words alone could wound her again. The atmosphere grew hotter. The truth was still buried beneath arguments and denials. The courtroom grew hotter as the case dragged on. Every word felt even more like fire. Lawyers clashed with fire in their tongues. Their voices filled the room like thunderclaps. Then Nancy's lawyer pointed straight at Jeff. His voice vibrated with anger. "My lord, this man is a coward, hiding behind lies. The evidence of violence is sitting right before you. The scar is permanent. This woman will live with one eye for the rest of her life. So I ask again, is that not evidence enough?" Jeff's lawyer sprang to his feet again, adjusting his glasses and smiling mockingly. "My lord, scars do not talk, do they? We all know a scar cannot stand as witness. Anybody can injure themselves and then blame another person. If they claim my client did this, then who saw him or who recorded it? Where is the video? Where is the photograph? Where is a neighbor that saw my client holding any weapon? My lord, this case is nothing but emotions. And the law cannot bow to emotions, period." People in the gallery hissed loudly. A woman near the front shouted, "So you are saying she plucked her eye by herself?" Another man slapped his thigh in anger. "Wickedness," he muttered. The judge banged his gavel hard. "Silence! If I hear another outburst, I will have no choice than to order the gallery to be cleared. This is a court of law, not a market square." The noise died, but the anger remained on the faces of many. Nancy just sat with her head bent low, shaking. Each word from her husband's lawyer was like a knife pushed into her wounds. Slowly, she lifted her face and glanced at Jeff. His eyes met hers. It was hard, sharp, daring. She shivered and quickly looked away, gripping her daughter's hand tightly. Her lawyer's voice shook with emotion. "My lord, this is cruelty upon cruelty. To harm a woman is evil enough, but to then drag her into court and call her a liar? That is wickedness at the highest level." But Jeff's lawyer only smiled again. "My lord, if we allow pity to replace proof, then the law will collapse. People will cry their way into judgment, but the law does not answer to tears." The words fell like stones in the courtroom. Nancy could not bear it anymore. She pressed her palm against her eye and sobbed loudly. "Jeff, why? Why are you denying this? You know what happened. You know the truth." Her body shook violently. Her daughter tugged at her wrapper, whispering, "Mummy, please, please stop crying." For a moment, the gallery went quiet, watching her. Even the judge sighed. His eyes softened before he cleared his throat. "Madam, control yourself. I understand your pain, but this is still a court of law." Jeff suddenly rose to his feet for the second time. His voice boomed. "My lord, do you not see? This is all an act. She is a good actress. The only thing she wants is to paint me as a monster so the whole world will hate me. But I am not that man. I never touched her. I never blinded her. I never raised a hand against her." His lawyer clapped his hand on the desk. "Exactly, my lord. This is a man wrongly accused. This is a man being destroyed by lies." The gallery exploded with noise. The judge's gavel banged again and again. "Order!" When the court finally grew quiet again, Nancy lifted her head slowly. Her voice was weak, shaking, yet filled with pain. "Jeff, you were my husband. I did everything for you. I carried your child. I prayed for you. And this is how you repay me? By sitting there and calling me a liar? After everything, after all the nights I covered my pain just to protect your name." Her voice broke, and she covered her face again, crying bitterly. The judge watched her quietly. His face softened for a moment before he forced it back into sternness. "Proceed," he said. Her lawyer pointed at Jeff. "My lord, this is what abusers do. They harm their victims, then twist the story until the victim looks like the liar. My lord, don't let this woman's tears be wasted." Jeff's lawyer shook his head dramatically. "My lord, we cannot turn this honorable court into a theater stage. Enough of emotional speeches. If my learned friend has no proof, let him sit down. Yes, let him sit down." The courtroom air grew heavier. In that room sat not just one woman's pain, but the pain of many. Countless women had carried bruises beneath their clothes, silent in their homes, afraid to speak. Some of them sat quietly in the gallery that day, their eyes fixed on Nancy, their hearts beating fast. Her scar was not just her own, it was a mirror of theirs. The court was not only hearing one case that day, it was carrying the voices of many women who had been silenced. And the question hung heavy in the air. If Nancy could not find justice here, what hope did they have? For Nancy, she trembled in her seat. Her daughter leaned against her. Her little eyes moved from the judge to the lawyers to her father. Fear sat heavy on her small face, but something else was there too, something strong, something determined. The arguments continued like a storm. Jeff's lawyer repeated again and again, "Where is the proof? Where is the proof?" Nancy's lawyer fired back, "The proof is here, sitting in front of you." Back and forth they went, their voices rose, echoing against the wooden walls of the courtroom. Every objection, every denial from Jeff's side drained Nancy. It was as if she was reliving the pain all over again, but this time in public, with everyone watching. She flinched at every loud word, her tears flowed freely. Then, slowly, quietly, her daughter's small hand began to rise. At first, nobody noticed. The lawyers were still shouting, the judge was banging his gavel, the gallery was murmuring. But the child's hand stayed in the air, small but steady. The judge's sharp eyes caught it first. He paused, frowning slightly. His voice cut through the noise. "Yes? Little one, why is your hand raised?" The lawyers froze mid-sentence. The courtroom fell silent. Heads turned one by one until every eye was fixed on the small girl sitting beside her mother. Nancy looked down at her daughter in surprise. Jeff's face stiffened, his jaw clenched as he turned sharply to look at his child. The little girl's voice was small, trembling, but it sounded clearly in the silence. "My lord, I have something to say." The courtroom froze. People turned to each other, whispering. "Anne, the child wants to speak?" Someone muttered. "What is she going to say?" Another asked. Even Jeff, bold all along, now stared at her with wide eyes. His chest rose and fell quickly. The judge leaned forward, studying her face carefully. His voice softened. "You want to say something, child?" he asked. She nodded firmly. "Yes, my lord." The judge removed his glasses, staring at her for a long moment. Then he glanced at the lawyers, who were both frozen in shock. Finally, he looked back at the girl. "Very well," he said slowly. "This court will hear you." The courtroom went silent, as if even the walls were holding their breath. All eyes rested on the little girl now. But before she could go on, the judge interrupted her calmly. He leaned forward slowly. His usually stern face softened. His voice was calm, almost fatherly. "Child, before you speak, you must know. This is a court of law. Only the truth is allowed here. Do you understand me?" The little girl nodded. Her small fingers twisted nervously at the hem of her dress. "Yes, my lord. I understand. I will only say the truth," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but because the courtroom was so silent, every word rang out like a bell. "Stand up, my dear," the judge instructed. She rose slowly. Her tiny figure trembled. Her eyes darted around the crowded courtroom. So many faces, so many eyes staring at her. For a moment, fear caught in her. She looked at her mother. Nancy's face was wet with tears, her body shook. She looked at her father. Jeff's eyes were fixed on her, sharp like a warning, almost daring her to speak. She swallowed hard and clenched her small fists. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Go on, child. Tell this court what you know." The little girl took a deep, shaky breath. "I love my mummy. She is the best person in the world. She takes care of me. She sings to me when I am afraid. She prays for me every night. My mummy does not lie. She is not pretending. I was there the night she lost her eye. I saw everything. Gasps filled the room. Some people's eyes opened wide, others shifted uncomfortably on their benches. Even the judge's eyes narrowed. "Go on," the judge said gently. The little girl's lips trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "That night, Daddy came home very angry. He was shouting. Mummy was begging him, telling him to calm down. She said, 'Please don't wake the child. Let's talk in the morning.' But he didn't listen. He kept shouting. He pushed her. She fell on the floor. Her voice broke and tears spilled down her cheeks. I was hiding near the corner. I wanted to run out and hold Mummy, but I was too afraid. Then Daddy picked a bottle from the table. He broke it on the wall. The sound was so loud, I covered my ears. Mummy was crying and begging him. But then, she stopped. Her voice shook uncontrollably. The courtroom leaned in. Nobody breathed. She couldn't go on. The pain in her voice was feel-able. Even Nancy broke, crying so intense. But then the judge encouraged her. "Please, child, put yourself together, okay? Continue. Tell us what happened next." The little girl nodded weakly. Then he used the bottle to stab Mummy's face, straight into her eyes. Her voice broke into deep, heartfelt tears now. A loud gasp filled the room. Women in the gallery shouted, "Jesus!" Some burst into tears instantly. A man shook his head and muttered, "God forbid." The little girl's body shook as she cried, but she kept talking. I saw it. I saw when the blood came out. Mummy screamed and held her face. I will never forget the sound of her scream. She was shaking, and the blood was on the floor. When Daddy left her there, I stood up. I wanted to run out to call somebody, but she grabbed me and held me tight. She told me, "Don't shout, don't cry loud. The neighbors must not hear." She was in pain, but she was still trying to protect Daddy's name. This moment, Nancy broke down completely. She bent forward, sobbing uncontrollably, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook violently. People in the courtroom wept with her. The judge's eyes glistened. He cleared his throat, but his voice was heavy. "My dear child, are you sure of what you're saying?" The girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Her voice, though shaking, was firm. "Yes, my lord, I am sure. I can never forget it. I saw it with my eyes and I was there. Daddy blinded my mummy." Jeff's lawyer sprang to his feet in panic. "My lord, with due respect, this is a child. Children imagine things. They exaggerate. She is only repeating what her mother told her." "Enough!" the judge thundered, slamming his gavel. His voice shook with anger. "Sit down, counsel." The lawyer froze, then lowered himself slowly into his seat, defeated. All eyes turned to Jeff. His proud posture had collapsed. His face was pale. Sweat ran down his forehead. His lips moved, but no words came out. The little girl turned toward him. Her voice pierced through the silence. "Daddy, why? Why did you do it? Why did you hurt Mummy like that? She still loves you. I still love you, but I cannot lie anymore. I saw what you did." The words struck like thunder. The gallery erupted again. Some people burst out crying. Some cursed under their breath, calling Jeff a monster. Some just shook their heads. One elderly man covered his face with his hands, muttering prayers. Women held each other tightly. Their sobs filled the room. Even the court clerk quietly wiped his eyes with his sleeve. It was really touching to hear such cruelty. And worst of all, to have been listening to the denial from Jeff and his lawyer. Jeff lowered his head into his palms. His chest rose and fell quickly, but he said nothing. For the first time, his arrogance was gone. Among the crowd, some women could not hold back their sobs. The judge leaned back slowly, removing his glasses. His voice was low but firm. "This court has heard enough. No child should ever have to carry such a memory. No woman should have to carry such pain. This testimony will not be ignored." He sighed heavily, looking at the little girl with respect. "My child, you have spoken with a courage that many adults cannot show. The truth you carried has set light in this courtroom." He lifted his gavel. "This case is adjourned. Judgment will be delivered." The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. Nancy reached for her daughter, pulling her into her arms. They held each other tightly, both weeping as people in the gallery stood aside to let them pass. Some sobbed softly, others stretched out their hands, whispering, "God will heal you." Jeff sat frozen, his hands still over his face, as the courtroom emptied. The truth had finally been spoken, but shockingly, not by lawyers, not by reports, but by the innocent lips of a child, his very own child. He had never expected it. He definitely didn't see it coming. No doubt, such truth was too heavy for a child to carry, and it broke the courtroom into tears. Her mother still wept. Her father now sat in shame. Even the judge himself struggled to hide the tears in his eyes. And as the doors of the courtroom closed, one question lingered in the air, heavy and unshakable. Should a man who caused so much pain, who left scars that can never fade, be forgiven simply because he says, "I am sorry"? Or should he be made to face the full wrath of the law so that justice can speak not just for one woman, but for every silent voice watching? Tell us what you think in the comments. I'll be going through each one of them. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Roots of the African Tales for more stories that touch the heart like this one.